All right, the long-awaited Gen 3 training video. Sorry I haven't done this sooner, but as you'll see that a lot of the interior fluid section parts are the same as the Gen 2. They did some great design upgrades on this to make it lighter weight, make it easier to work on, and I think this is their best gun yet, the Gen 3. Check it out. All right, so without further ado, you know how your manifold mounts on here with that bolt. And of course, you got your two valves that are over these check valves. So when you open those, that's the first place the fluid goes, is into those check valves. To remove them, they give you a little slot on the side where you can just simply pry up on them. There's the housing with the face O-ring, and the housing O-ring is on the outside here, the little thin O-ring. And I put this out here because every O-ring that is in the kit is the actual size on your O-ring diagram here. Every O-ring is laid out, so if you wanted to rebuild the entire gun, you could simply just set all the O-rings out there and do that. But first we pop these out of the way. These are your check valves. I like to keep them separated from each other. And don't forget your little spring and a BB that goes with it. That's what's inside the check valve. Little BB right there that goes in first, and then your spring goes on top of it. That's your check valve. So the next place the fluid goes when you have them valves open goes through those check valves, and it falls down in a little notch that they put in there to fill up the side seals. And the way you get those out, just like the Gen 2, they are threaded in. I do love this design. You just simply unthread it, wiggle it gently. Try not to roll the O-ring back, gently pull it out. There is a side seal housing right there. You have your outer O-ring for the side seal housing next to the thread, and your inner housing O-ring, which is closer to the inside, closer to the side seal. This is your side seal. It pops right out, and there's a little O-ring on it. That is your side seal tip right there. The side seal also has a spring in it, and if these get compressed too much, you have to change these out. They're only like $4 or $5 a piece, but that spring is very important to keep the side seal tip pressed hard against the mixing chamber. So you always got to make sure when you put these together, when you're rebuilding, of course, check all your O-rings, but make sure that there's plenty of tension on that spring and where your side seal tip sticks out. If you stick it in there and your side seal tip is pressed in like that, your spring is not doing right. So you need it to be sticking out like that. Does that make sense? All right, that was the A side. Of course, what I teach people is not to open your stuff where gravity will make the fluid that's in this side seal go to the other side. So you want to hold it upside down when you do this. Hold it upside down. So when you take, this is if it's full of chemical. So when you take it out, all your material can fall out. And I set the part off to the side. I rinse the hole that it came out of so that none of that goes the other way and cross-contaminates inside your gun, just to make the cleanup worse on you. So make sure you pull it out where it's facing the bottom. Rinse the hole before you do anything else on all parts when you pull them out. So once we got those two side seal housings out of the side, then we could take our air cap off. Simply use this little wrench they give you and unthread it. That's your air cap. Got a little O-ring. There's an air cap O-ring on the deal. Then you have your nozzle right here. This little metal piece is what gives you that round pattern that you're looking at. This is the piece you drill out with your drill bit while you're spraying. You always have to keep an eye on that pattern. And I do pattern checks by holding it about a foot away from a surface and doing a quick trigger. And if it comes out a nice circle, you're still good. But if it starts looking funky and the circle isn't complete, then you might need to take your drill bit and clean the tip out, which will be this piece right here. So once we got all that off, then we could take our fluid block off here by just simply undoing these two bolts. Once you got those out, simply just slide this off. Now, let me give you some pointers about this block. If you can see inside there how clean it is, this is a brand new gun. But the truth is, when you cross one over, there'll be foam in this thing, and you have to get all that foam out and not leave any foam in there at all. You got to use wire brushes, whatever you can. Just, I would be careful with using screwdrivers because this is aluminum, this is steel, and if you get too rough in there, you can gouge it and cause it where an O-ring can't seal off, and then you'll have leaks and stuff. So you got to be kind of gentle with it when it comes to running a screwdriver or something metal in there. But what I have found is wire brushes that you can get at Harbor Freight. Let me show you. They look like this right here. This is they sell them pretty cheap at Harbor Freight, but they fit in this gun pretty good where you can clean it out really well with one of these. But the key, now that you know how to take this apart, is to make sure everything inside here is perfectly clean before you try to put anything back together. And also, very important to make sure that your O-rings and everything are not nicked. And if you clean these parts out, you just got to check everything 3 times before you put it back together, or else you run a risk of causing it to cross over again because it's not clean. Last part of the fluid section is the mixing chamber. You can see the mixing chamber. On the mixing chambers, as most of you already know, there are little holes on the sides. They give you a small drill bit so you can clean those holes. And whenever a mixing chamber gets crossed over, you have to break it down this far to get to those small holes so you can clean them out and clean the barrel out. And one of the tests I like to do is running fluid down into this with a straw like on a WD-40 can, and I just hold it dead center of that barrel and I squeeze the trigger and I watch the fluid come out the side holes. If it's coming out equally out of both sides nice and hard, then your mixing chamber is clear. But if it's only coming out one side and not the other very well or at all, then you know you got to clean it some more. So that's one of the ways you can make sure your mixing chamber is clean. This is the part of the gun you're going to mess with the most. So that's why I'm giving you all these pointers. Make sure everything is good and clean. To remove the mixing chamber, simply unthread it. Comes off pretty easily. Use the wrench if you need to. We just unthread it until it comes off. And there's your mixing chamber. That is everything in the fluid block. And that's how you take it apart. I've showed you all the parts inside. So we'll move on to the piston housing next.